Historic hurricane. 2 people killed by the strongest storm to hit the Panhandle in recorded history.
The storm surge reached up to 14 feet in some areas.
This is something for the record books.
Sustained winds were just 1 mile per hour short of a Category 5 storm.
This morning, we're taking you inside the disaster and showing you the catastrophic damage.
Hundreds of thousands of people are without power in Georgia and Florida, and it could be weeks before they get the lights back on. But crews here from Duke Energy, they're in Jacksonville. They are getting ready to leave to do their best to restore power and head west this morning.
Nearly 400,000 people in Florida were told to leave their homes. Many are being told to stay off the roads to let emergency crews do their job.
Live from WJXT, the morning show starts now.
Michael, now a tropical storm sweeping through the southeast. It made landfall as the strongest storm to hit the Panhandle on record. Look at these pictures. Look at the damage in Panama City Beach. That's where the storm hit as a Category 4, almost a Category 5.
2 people have died, a man in Gadsden County, Florida, and a girl in Seminole County, Georgia. The man died when a tree fell on his home, and the girl was killed when a carport lifted by the winds crashed into her family's home, and she was hit in the head. Good morning, everyone. Nearly 400,000 people here in Florida were told to leave their homes ahead of this storm. Now, Governor Scott, you may remember, said he was scared to death for those who chose to stay.
And this morning, rescue crews will move into the hardest hit areas, assessing the damage, trying to find people who may be trapped. Got some new video from Mexico Beach, which was virtually destroyed. It's where the storm made landfall. Homes reduced to rubble, shopping centers wiped out, trees toppled. In fact, this video shows storm chasers driving through the storm's eye wall.
Hundreds of thousands of people in Georgia and Florida do not have power this morning. Right now, more than 337,000 in Florida and 349,000 in Georgia are in the dark. Crews think it could take weeks to restore the power. Most of the outages, of course, are in the Big Bend and Panhandle areas.
Public schools in Baker, Bradford, Columbia, Union, and Charlton counties will be closed again today. Just check Duval, St. Johns, and Clay County schools. Normal schedules, after-school activities will happen today as scheduled. News4Jax has crews spread out across the state.
But we begin this morning with Omar Jimenez in Panama City Beach.
People here are waking up to the destruction and the aftermath of Hurricane Michael today. You can see just a little bit of it behind me. This used to be office space here, but you can see at this point it has been reduced to nothing but rubble, even leaving highway signs mixed up in all of this debris. Again, this is just some of what people will be waking up to today as the sun comes up. But let's remember, Hurricane Michael landed with 155 mile per hour winds, technically classified as a Category 4, but just a few miles per hour short of a Category 5.
I still can't believe it.
People in the Florida Panhandle are taking in the toll of Hurricane Michael.
It's a lot of loss. I mean, thank goodness everybody else is safe.
Florida took a direct hit Wednesday from the historic storm.
Hurricane Michael is the worst storm that the Florida Panhandle has ever seen, and one of the worst power storms to ever make landfall in the United States.
Winds of up to 155 miles per hour tore through trees, power lines, and buildings like this one. The family business Brandon Troop and his wife Sydney planned on opening this weekend. Now gone.
Really an eye-opener on, taking things like this serious.
Officials now focusing on recovery and helping those affected by the storm.
We're turning 100% of our focus on search and rescue.
But it's not just Florida. Michael is now the first major hurricane to track into Georgia since 1898. As the storm makes its way north and east, thousands of customers across Georgia and Alabama have lost power. And now parts of South Carolina under tropical storm watch brace for possible flooding.
And then you're going to see rainfall through South and North Carolina, and dumping 4 to 6 inches of rain in rivers that are already saturated and haven't really receded much from Florence a couple weeks ago.
And unfortunately, this morning, we know of 2 storm-related deaths, one a man here in Florida and another an 11-year-old child in Georgia. Let's keep this in perspective as far as Hurricane Michael goes. This was the strongest storm to ever hit the Florida Panhandle. And when you look at the United States as a whole, the strongest to hit the continental U.S. since Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Reporting live from Panama City, I'm Omar Jimenez.
Just unbelievable images that from Panama City. And here's some more compelling video and images that are coming into our newsroom of Panama City as well. So these were boats that were docked during the storm. I mean, look, they're just piled on top of one another. I mean, you can hardly make them out. I can count 1, 2, 3. See this one here? 4, 5, 6, 7, overturned, flipped over. And then another one. This is in front of a school in Panama City Beach. The winds from Michael. Look at the flagpole here. Snapped at the top, ripping the flag, and you can see the debris here in front of the school. It looks like maybe pieces of roof. We know that the part of the roof of this school was also damaged as a result of those winds. And take a look at another photo that shows the sheer strength of the storm. The winds twisted. This is a metal sign and light poles, and then there's also an awning. You see this awning over here that was ripped also by those 155-mile-per-hour winds. I mean, the cleanup is just unbelievable that will now need to be done starting, of course, today and for several weeks, if not months. Bruce.
Yeah, I heard some people who were there on the ground when the storm roared through, and then looking at the aftermath, who said it looks like a nuclear bomb went off, and some others said it looks like we're living in a third world country now. The devastation is so bad. Now in Florida alone, thousands of people evacuated, left their homes, took off to get out of the way of this historic, destructive storm. This video shows the dangerous conditions along I-10 as the storm hit the Panhandle yesterday. 375,000 people in Florida were under mandatory evacuation orders. 6,700 people stayed in shelters. News4JAX reporter Ashley Harding is driving along I-10, heading west toward the worst of the damage. Ashley, your observations on the road to destruction.
Yes, we've seen quite a bit of it. And right now, Bruce, I will tell you, we've actually made it into Tallahassee. We're in city limits. I want to go ahead and just turn our camera around. Sorry if this might look a bit choppy, but it's live TV for you, so I just want to show it to you right here, just to get a sense of what we're looking at. You know, you see things right now, you see traffic lights are working on this side of the street, not the other way. We're on Monroe Street, so we're right here, and I'm just going to go ahead, we're going to turn right. I want to show you just to get a sense of what Tallahassee is dealing with at this point. Again, I know it's choppy, but you can see all of this debris throughout here. Also, this tree is also partially uprooted. That's the situation that is going on right now. But we did just get in here. Now you're looking at lights right now. Like I said, that's not the case on many roads here in Tallahassee. Duval Street was pretty dark. Traffic lights were out. We've seen lots of police throughout here, so they're monitoring the situation as well. There was also some construction going on, so that's not really helping the situation. Obviously, that construction's not going on as we speak right now, but it was prior to the storm, and you can see all of this debris right here. So we've also noticed in the last couple of minutes quite a few power trucks from other areas, like the city of Alachua had power crews out here helping the situation here. So like I said, lots of lights right now, but that's not the case throughout a lot of Tallahassee. So definitely something they're dealing with, and we're going to keep driving around. We're probably going to leave Tallahassee and see the areas around here as well, because we've been seeing lots of road closures and down power lines and what have you. So I'm just going to send it right on back to you guys. We'll keep everybody updated.
A couple of things about Tallahassee. Jen and I were just talking. There are a lot of parents who have their kids home right now because FSU, FAMU, they decided to cancel class and the kids won't go back to school till Monday. And also, while Ashley and her photographer are in the city proper, if you go to some of the outlying areas, know there's some very heavily wooded and treed areas. And Rich has a friend who lives in one of those neighborhoods, and it's so bad she probably may not be able to get out of her house. I mean, like out the front door for a couple of days because trees are blocking everything.
Which is always a problem because even in our area, we have these big, beautiful oaks. And unfortunately, when storms pass through, like they're seeing in Tallahassee, it can be just devastating, particularly with those power lines. And of course, we'll continue to bring you live reports from Ashley Harding as she drives around that area and outside of Tallahassee. Now, crews around the state are also heading west, of course, to help restore power to the hundreds of thousands of people who are in the dark.
Take a look at this live map from Power Outage USA. You can see most of the outages nationwide are in Florida, Georgia, some in Alabama. And it looks like they're creeping into, well, they haven't creeped into the Carolinas yet. By the numbers, Georgia, 349,000 in the dark. Florida, 337 without power.
News4JAX's Nikki Kimbleton is on the west side where Duke Energy, Nikki, crews will be traveling to the Panhandle in a little less than an hour. And I think you spoke to someone who's also going to Georgia and maybe also to Tennessee.
Yeah, we did. Well, we talked to people that are actually going to Georgia, to the Panhandle. We did speak to one man. He's actually from Alabama. He just got back from helping out with Florence. Take a look over here. You can see that the trucks are fired up. The crews are all here. They spent the night in local hotels. There's 3,000 men and women, 1,500 power trucks, and then several hundred more tree companies with trucks and crews here as well. And they are getting ready to deploy and head out. We should see them start pulling out here in about the next 45 minutes to an hour. Now, Duke Power, they really did a great job of prepping these crews. This morning when they all got here, they were bussed in again from those hotels. They were able to get boxes of snacks, pallets full of drinks, everything from Mountain Dew, which they're going to need to stay awake, to Gatorade and water to keep them hydrated while they're out there for the next week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. I spoke to one gentleman. He's been doing this for 40 years, and he says that, this is probably going to be one of the worst storms with the worst damage that he has ever worked on. But can I tell you how nice these workers are? Every time that they pass by us, they stop and say hello. We get a chance to talk back and forth with them about where they're from and, and tell them to stay safe and good luck. I mean, it's such a crucial job, and they are ready to get to it. And it's not just here at the Equestrian Center where you're going to see a staging area like this. In fact, Jennifer Reddy is in Lake City, where FPL has something very similar. Jennifer?
That's exactly right, Nikki. FPL has set up this staging area for several days now, and just in the last half hour or so, we've started to see activity pick up just a little bit. Linemen are starting to return to their trucks after sleeping overnight. They did have mobile sleeper units here on the fairgrounds for some of those utility workers if they wanted to use them. But we are told, we did just speak with an FPL spokesperson, and he tells us that right now they're kind of just standing by. They're waiting to see where a lot of that damage is and where their resources are needed at this time. There is no specific time that these utility workers know that they will be heading out, but you can see this is where a lot of their trucks have been staged for right now, more than 300 trucks. And then if you go across the street, they also are going to be sending some tree trimmer trucks that you can see staged across the street. Those will be going to some of those areas where there may be some down trees, some down power lines, all to help with the recovery efforts in the Panhandle. Again, at this time, they don't know exactly what time they'll be leaving. I'll show you this video. They do have a mobile command center that has been set up here on site. That's kind of where they're handling all of this, assessing the damage, monitoring the damage, and seeing exactly where these crews need to go. But we'll continue to keep you updated as these crews get ready to leave and find out exactly where they may be heading in the Panhandle. Jennifer Reddy, Channel 4, the local station.
All right, so Michael was the strongest hurricane to hit Florida since Andrew, which was in 1992, and the strongest storm in history to hit the Panhandle. And that's when you check records back to something like 1851.
Yeah, so Melanie, this was only the fourth major hurricane to hit that part of the state. Wow.
I know, but let's show you the damage over the years. A major hurricane is a Category 3 or higher, and it's only happened in the Panhandle 3 times. All 3 times before Michael, those storms were Cat 3s. Michael, the first, Category 4. So the most recent was back in 2005. Hurricane Dennis slammed the area as a Cat 3. It caused about $2.5 billion worth of damage here in the United States. And then 10 years earlier, in 1995, people remember Hurricane Opal. It caused extensive damage in the Panhandle, especially in Wakulla County. It caused $2.1 billion worth of damage in Florida alone, a little less than Dennis back there. Now, in 1975, you had Hurricane Eloise. It made landfall just west of Panama City. The strong winds from this storm caused major damage in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia.
Now, here's today's forecast to plan your day, driven by Keith Pearson Toyota.
Comparatively, it'd be interesting to go back through the storms and compare the damage, because if you're looking at some of the older pictures, you notice that the buildings were still there. Buildings back then were still being built with concrete, mortar, brick, concrete bricks. And so I wonder how the damage would, just, thinking out loud, compare then to today, as a lot of our stuff is if not prefab, it's all stick built, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the damage. Now, there is some video, and we'll even show it again this morning, of an old Florida type house. And what I'm talking about is a flat roof home. You typically see them beachside here. They used to be really popular here around the Big Bend until hurricanes. Now everything is on stilts, but some of those older ones, they're concrete block with the flat roofs, but we saw the roof breach from one of them. And once that structure was done, then the concrete block around it also started to topple. This is a satellite signature. I'm seeing a lot of folks that are posting similar things and say, hey, look at all the rain that continues. I'll show you the radar here, and when it comes to the rainfall, it's very narrow. Most of what we're seeing, the bulk load of it, is already into South Carolina, and this will continue to lead to the north as Michael continues to weaken. So here we are, our radar beams are on, all 5 powerful sweeps here, and we are coming up dry inside of the viewing circle. This is just mist and drizzle in the light blue, and I had to turn on the national composite to actually get a full picture here. So here's where the rain sets, even most of Georgia, aside from Atlanta northward up through Blue Ridge and then heading back into the Carolinas. Most of that is looking good, but this is looking spectacular. Get your phones, get your tablets, get a real camera, set up a tripod, call the kids, call the neighbors. Look at that. That is a tropical sunrise. And last night we had tropical sunsets. We had these almost purplish looking color skies. That, folks, is beautiful. I just want to stop right there and just watch it. Maybe get a chair and just sit there and stare. 81 degrees right now, southwest winds at 16 miles an hour. It went from a Picasso down to a macaroni plate on the refrigerator when I stepped in the way, and I apologize. Breezy with hot conditions this maybe the microwave, or the pasta plate had a smiley face on the refrigerator. So breezy and hot this afternoon. We're talking record highs in the forecast for today. Light winds and cooler conditions. 91 degrees. You hop off the bus. The wind will continue to taper off. Strongest winds right now, southeast Georgia, and along our coastal zones, we'll see those go from the 20-mile-an-hour range back down to about 10 to 15 on average as we get to late afternoon. 70s and 80s, they continue area-wide. The signature tells the story. This is our hour-by-hour forecast, and here we are at 2 o'clock. The bulk load of the rain at this point moves into the Carolinas, the Virginias, and then that moves offshore from Norfolk. Strongest winds this morning, taper off. That's 11 o'clock. Let's see where it starts to bring these down. I think this is the one that waits until after about 5 o'clock. We'll see those tapering before that, and that's what we're looking forward to here. Clear skies tonight. As our skies clear out, temperatures will warm up. The sun is going to be ample here for today, but over as we hit, 7 o'clock tonight is sunset. Temperatures will steadily fall. We're talking 60s out there for the start of our finally Friday. Daytime highs with the drier air moving in under that northwesterly flow. We might be able to call it open window weather, even into Saturday, especially during the mornings, on Sunday as well, and then it starts to warm back up again. The chance for showers creeps back in next week. Stay ahead of those showers. 107.3 The River, your forecast every hour. 17 minutes after the hour, let's check with Crystal in that Time Saver traffic.
Now, here's Safe Touch Security Time Saver traffic.
Hey, good morning. So the big slowdown this morning will be on the Buckman Bridge, where if you're headed southbound on 295, you've got a crash in that left shoulder right on the bridge out there. So traffic definitely slowing down very quickly, and it's definitely moving very slowly out there. Right now, travel times on the southbound side, it's about a 10-minute ride going from Orange Park over into Road Mandarin. If you're traveling northbound, though, not seeing any onlooker delay. So that is the good news. Now, as far as bridge closures go in Jacksonville, no bridges are closed in Jacksonville, but if you're heading up north, up toward Brunswick, that the Sydney Linear Bridge does remain shut down until Georgia DOT can determine whether it's safe to reopen. So they do need to go out there to inspect it. Once it's safe to reopen, they will reopen it, and we'll make sure to let you know. That's a look at your Safe Touch Security Time Saver traffic.
The powerful force of an almost Category 5 hurricane.
News 4 Jax reporter Vic Micolucci has been in Panama City Beach since Tuesday. Here's some of what he experienced yesterday.
Trying to see what I can. It hurts.
Having covered 15 or 20 storms, I can tell you, when you are pelted by those driven rains, it does sting. It does hurt. Storm surge reached up to 12 feet in Apalachicola.
We're breaking down the record-breaking surge along the Big Bend coast next.
Imagine you had to evacuate, and when you finally get to come home, you come home to images like this. Maybe it's your workplace, it's gone. Maybe your home is gone. You're forced to rebuild everything, rebuild your life. That's a marina. It's just one of the many businesses now in rubble.
Yeah, Panama City Beach. It's news for Jack's reporter. In fact, Vic Micolucci has been there for about 3 days. He was on the 3rd floor of a parking garage during the storm surge.
Things have just gotten unbearable in the past 15 minutes. We do have a truck. We were walking around earlier as these vans came through. But what we're looking at now and what we are feeling now could potentially be the strongest storm that has ever come through the Florida Panhandle. That's after talking with so many experts. I mean, I don't even know what to say because I have covered Hurricane Matthew, Hermine, Irma, Maria in Puerto Rico, Harvey in Houston, and I have never seen winds like this. This is absolutely mind-blowing. It is absolutely frightening. Anybody that is not in a safe place, surrounded by thick concrete out here in Panama City Beach, their lives are definitely at risk. It's painful even to get somewhat out there. We certainly hope that this is the worst of it. We can't check anything right now. It's too wet. So we can't look at the radar. Look at that, Joe. Look at that. This is nature's fury at its finest. And those are the strongest wind gusts that we have seen, not just today, not just in this storm, but ever.
You know, the picture is compelling enough, but you hear the wind sweeping it sideways and the velocity of that rain. And then adding insult to injury, you had storm surge.
Yeah, Mark, you know, the governor all along had said up to 13 feet, and he was pretty much dead on.
Yeah.
We saw the most, what, at 12 feet?
About 12 feet right now. So
That's
I
more
clicked
than
through.
one story.
These were all of the sensors that were reporting real time, the storm surge. Now, the U.S. Geological Survey will put sensors out that records storm surge. And after the fact, there'll probably be some higher readings out of those. But yes, Apalachicola Bay was where we saw some of the highest storm surge. Now remember, storm surge is the biggest threat from hurricanes. Fortunately, people evacuate. And so inland freshwater flooding is the biggest killer out of hurricanes. With this storm, we're hearing reports of one person in Florida being killed, and I don't think it's due to storm surge. But notice here, 12-foot storm surge right there in Appalachia Bay. Now, notice the 5 to 6 foot surge on the other side of the track. So think of this storm with a two-way street. Cars moving one direction, the other street, they're moving in the opposite direction. Winds move onshore, whereas on the left side of the storm, that's the opposite direction. Winds pushing water away from the coast. 5 to 6 feet, that's a pretty high surge. That was how high Opal was in 1996, or 95. This storm nearly doubles the surge of Opal. So when we take a look at areas further away, you can see that the impact of surge extended much farther away from the storm. There's Shell Point, just south of Tallahassee, with a 12-foot surge. Even Cedar Key, 8 foot above mean low tide. So another takeaway from this, which is very important to look at these storms and for future preparations, realize that storm surge can affect areas far away from where the storm is making landfall, like in Tampa Bay that got 4 foot of surge. This is why the storm surge is no longer related to the Saffir-Simpson scale. Typically, hurricanes of a Category 4 strength put up a surge of around 14 feet. This surge was not as high as a normal Cat 4, and that's because you have to factor in the size, the rate of movement of the hurricane, and the shape of the coastline. All those will change the surge, and it's not necessarily due to the intensity. When you look at the shelf waters here, this continental shelf extends very far off the Florida coast. And in fact, at one time, you could walk from Florida to the Yucatan because the water was low and this shelf extended that area. But the bottom line is that the shallow water accentuates the storm surge, makes it higher in the Gulf compared to a storm that would be making landfall along our East Coast beaches.
And I've got to tell you, I am shocked that there weren't more people who lost their lives.
I think people really heeded the warning. When you see a Cat 4 barreling your way, you know there's no way to escape it or to ride it out other than to evacuate.
Yeah, particularly since literally in the middle of the night, this went from a Category 3 to a Category 4. So they would already have had to have left, even though they knew it was a Category 3 at the time.
And one other thing, too, when you have a Category 4, even if it weakens, there's this kinetic energy to the surge. And so even if the storm fizzled out, you would still have that rush of water coming in. So that's very important as well. But with that continental shelf there, it traps waves between the storm and the west coast of Florida. And so all that water is forced into the concave shape of the coastline. It's very shallow there in Appalachia Bay, averaging around 15 feet in depth.
There's nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
Right?
The water can't go down and back out, so it goes ashore.
It's almost like the wave, I don't want to be sophomoric here, but like the wave machine concept at Adventure Landing, how it creates those waves and creates that action.
It all plays a part.
Yeah, all right, thank you, Mark. Vic, by the way, is going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour of the morning show to show us what Panama City Beach looks like this morning. We'll be right back.
You're watching Channel 4, the local station. Live with Jennifer Waugh, Bruce Hamilton, Melanie Lawson, Nikki Kimbleton, Stacy Spanos, Time Saver Traffic with Crystal Moyer, the Weather Authority Forecast with Richard Nunn, and Traffic and Breaking News with Sky 4. The morning show continues.
Michael's wrath when it roared ashore in the U.S. 2 people dead, homes, businesses in the Panhandle destroyed. The strongest storm to hit that part of the state on record.
Now we have drone video from Panama City showing a middle school. Its roof was ripped off the strong winds. We'll bring that to you in just a minute. This morning will be the first really full day that crews can start assessing damage.
A man in Gadsden County died yesterday when a tree fell on his home, and a girl in Seminole County, Georgia died when a carport collapsed on the roof of her family's home. Meantime, more than a half a dozen counties remain under curfew this morning.
Emergency crews urging everyone in Bay, Calhoun, Franklin, Gadsden, Gulf, Jackson, Liberty, and Taylor counties to stay off the road so that they can do their jobs. Governor Scott tweeted this: "We are still in the process of assessing damage from the hurricane. Do not return to your house unless you know the path is clear. Going out without having a clear route will put you and your family in danger."
Michael had sustained wind gusts of 155 miles an hour. It was like 2 miles per hour shy of being a Category 5 when it rammed the Panhandle. Strongest storm to hit the continental U.S. since Andrew 26 years ago, 1992. Now this morning, hundreds of thousands of people in Florida and Georgia don't have power.
It could take weeks, in fact, to get the lights turned back on. Omar Jimenez is in Panama City Beach, one of the areas hit hardest by the storm. We're going to check in with him in just a moment.
First, Richard is tracking the remnants of Michael, now a tropical storm. The Carolinas and its crosshairs in Virginia.
Yeah, and we also have your Friday football game of the week. That's going to be at Ridgeview at Clay. Look for temperatures to top out around the 80s for tomorrow. By 7 o'clock, we'll actually be closer to the lower 70s. UF is at Vanderbilt, 60s. FSU has a bye week, and the Cowboys-Jags, temperatures there about 68 degrees. From there and into the tropics part of our forecast here as we continue. See if we can get it to go ahead. We do have the remnants is what continues as a tropical storm. I say remnants. It's still a tropical storm moving into Georgia. There it goes. And taking aim on the Carolinas, this is going to continue to spread some wet weather that way. The winds at a 5 o'clock advisory down to 50 miles an hour. The barometric pressure, which could be a record tire out there, bottomed out at 919, and it's moving to the northeast at 21 and expected to put more speed behind it here as it is going to continue to move to the northeast in those double-digit speeds, really picking up some speed after it exits Norfolk out there for tomorrow. Into our forecast locally, breezy and cloudy conditions for today. Breezy and hot will take us into the afternoon. Then the wind will taper off, going near calm after sunset. The tropical storm warnings have been allowed to expire from Valdosta all the way over to the Golden Isles around Brunswick and northward. We continue. Those two will continue to expire as we get some distance between us and Michael. A gorgeous, stunning, beautiful sunrise this morning. And you know what? Even with the sun above the horizon, it still looks good. 81 degrees already beachside. We've got south-southwest winds at 16 miles per. 70s and 80s across the board. Northeast Florida and southeast Georgia up to 82 degrees as you get closer to the Altamaha. Your forecast for today, record highs as we'll top out with those lower 90s. 35 minutes after the hour, let's check with John and the Gone Gauge.
Good morning, Richard. Good morning, Mark. Look, the big story here, Oktoberfest. I know, just like that. Michael's out, sun's in. Amazing weekend coming up in terms of our weather. Make it a 10 on the Gone Gauge for tomorrow. And as far as the weekend's concerned, all weekend long, really super spectacular weekend at the beach. Offshore winds, temperatures that'll be pleasant. A little bit of a breeze coming back on shore on Sunday. But until then, we'll enjoy it and be thankful with our prayers that, of course, Michael stayed out west and not here. So again, the weekend forecast looking great. The 10 on the Gone Gauge basically starts tomorrow, right on through Sunday. We'll track those weekend temperatures, talk more about the post-Michael conditions that we're seeing, and that'll all kick off tonight at 4.
Now, here's Safe Touch Security Time Saver Traffic.
If you have friends or family who take the Buckman Bridge this morning, this is what they're looking at. Give them the heads up. It's a little blurry, but there is a crash off on that southbound side, and it's blocking that left lane out there. So because of this crash, traffic is definitely very congested heading southbound. We've got traffic backed up past Blanding right now, and traffic along US 17 northbound headed up toward 295. That's slowing down to about 6 miles per hour right now. So give yourself an extra 10 minutes if you do need to travel southbound on the Buckman Bridge toward 295. This is a look at some of your travel times along I-10 eastbound. That's about a 20-minute ride to go from 295 over to our downtown. And then I-95 seeing some bumper-to-bumper traffic. That's about a 24-minute ride to go from the south side over to downtown. That's a look at your Safe Touch Security Time Saver Traffic.
Omar Jimenez is live in Panama City Beach this morning as we continue our coverage of damage caused by Hurricane Michael. Of course, crews this morning will have their first full day, Omar, to be able to go basically where you are and really assess the damage. Is that one house or what's left of it behind you?
Yeah, so this establishment behind me, we believe is an office building based on what we've seen on Google Maps and Google Earth. But look, as you can tell, it is unrecognizable this morning, reduced really to rubble, brick, glass, and you can even see there is a highway sign that has found its way into the debris as well. This was just among the many places damaged by these winds that came in so strongly with, again, a Category 4 hurricane, but just miles per hour away from a Category 5. And when you take a look at this whole area, I believe we have an aerial view that we can toss to, basically shows the widespread devastation of, again, just the winds that came through here. This was not flooding. This was 155 mile per hour winds that, again, struck even east of where I am was the direct hit, and you see all the damage that even occurred right at this point. Now, when you talk about some of the things that we are following this morning, we know of at least 2 storm-related deaths, one here in Florida and one an 11-year-old girl in Georgia, trees falling on both of their homes. We're also keeping an eye on the power outages, more than 500,000 across Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. We can imagine that'll be among the officials' top priorities to get that restored as they begin to assess what this road to recovery is going to look like. And when you talk about some of the search and rescue efforts going on, Governor Rick Scott said once those tropical storm force winds died down, they had more than 1,000 ready on standby to go into some of these communities and homes and make sure that people weren't in any life-threatening situations. And we know from at least one member of the Cajun Navy that he found a woman crouched in the fetal position in her garage, debris all around her with a tree branch, or a full tree rather, I should say, just inches from where she stood. So a lot of those situations we can imagine will come out as the road to recovery begins.
Yeah, it gives you the chills even thinking about how fortunate clearly she was that that tree didn't hit her.
Yeah.
Omar, I'm not sure how much you're able to move from where you are. Have you found that many of the roads are impassable? I mean, what do you think is going to happen now today? Will there be, enough crews who will be able to start really cleaning up, or are they going to have to wait until, other crews come in and have to literally clear the roads?
There's going to be a lot of both, I'll say that. I can tell you this morning, just from driving around the Panama City area, there are roads that are passable. Obviously, we were able to get here in about a 30-minute drive or so, but there are plenty of hazards along the way. We had to stop and try to circumnavigate down power lines that are covering the entire street. There are trees that are covering many roads as well. So to get to the full extent of these communities, there are many places that are still unreachable. There are some that are still underwater in places further east of us. There are some that, again, are just covered by debris. This building behind me, I showed you a part of it, but a lot of its pieces have spilled into the road as well. So you can imagine those efforts for crews are going to be twofold. One, to get some of these spaces cleared and safe for secondary crews to get in and restore some of these efforts.
Omar Jimenez joining us live from Panama City Beach. Thank you, Omar. Stay safe.
Helping after the storm. When Michael made landfall, it brought 155-mile-per-hour winds, storm surge, flash flooding, and heavy rains. The devastation has volunteers rushing to help the people of the Panhandle. Something you can do right here at home: donate blood. Community blood centers in the region need all blood types, along with platelets and plasma. One Blood can be found in almost every Florida county, and you can search your nearest donation center at oneblood.org. You can also donate blood with the American Red Cross. To make an appointment, go online or through their blood donor app. If you'd rather donate cash, several funds have been set up to donate to people affected by Michael. Send money, go to volunteerflorida.org or text disaster to 20222. Then you'll donate $10 to the Florida Disaster Fund. Salvation Army also has a webpage to help collect money for victims. Donations can be made online, by phone, or through the mail. And if you'd like to get hands-on, Volunteer Florida has created a place to register online, volunteer to help with cleanup, running shelters, or medical and health care needs. Just go to volunteerflorida.org.
Thank you, Bruce. It is 18 minutes before 8 o'clock this morning. Our coverage, of course, of the devastation caused by the storm continues right now on news4jax.com. That's where we have this photo gallery of the most really compelling images that are coming into our newsroom throughout the morning. You can find that by going to the homepage of our website. Governor Rick Scott and Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum are now, of course, focused on the cleanup efforts after Michael. Both are involved also in major midterm races that voters will decide on this November. So how Michael is impacting those races coming up. Plus, Cedar Key saw major flooding when Michael swept through. Why one woman says Hurricane Hermine 2 years ago prepared her for this storm. That story's next. And our Sky 4 chopper just took off moments ago. You remember yesterday parts of our area were under tornado watches? Well, there was a report of a tornado in western Clay County near Camp Blanding. He's going to head in that direction to see what kind of damage was caused by that. We'll be right back. The Cedar Key, an island in the Gulf of Mexico where flooding was the biggest problem really caused by Hurricane Michael.
Actually, this is cell phone video recorded by Michael Hancock, who lives along the beach. See how violent the waves are as they push to shore. Streets were flooded. Water penetrated the first floor of homes close to the shoreline. One of those beachfront homes is owned by Sandy Heckler and her husband.
We didn't lose anything. The cleanup is going to be so much better. I think we cleaned up. We didn't move back into our place for 6 weeks. So we're not displaced at all this time.
So going through Hurricane Hermine prepared you for this?
Oh, yes, sir. Most definitely.
Despite the flooding, despite the wind gusts, there were no reports of any injuries. It's because many people evacuated the area before the storm hit. Now, although the storm has passed, recovery, well, it's just in the beginning phases.
Michael could also impact some crucial local midterm races. Kristen Holmes explains from Washington.
This is a make it or break it moment for politicians in Florida, with just weeks until the critical November midterms. Campaigning on hold while elected officials crisscross the state in the aftermath of the storm. In a state where voters have already started casting ballots, candidates like Senator Bill Nelson and Republican Governor Rick Scott know they're being carefully watched, planning their storm response accordingly. And Democratic gubernatorial nominee and Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum off the trail and back at home. These candidates, particularly Gillum and Scott, will be judged on their response as state leaders and their ability to cross party lines and work together in the aftermath. A positive storm response could propel them in the polls. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy jolting Governor Chris Christie's popularity in New Jersey. But a perceived botched response like President Bush during Katrina could cause a disastrous downfall. Reporting from Washington, I'm Kristen Holmes. Back to you.
Now, here's today's forecast to plan your day, driven by Keith Pearson Toyota.
Record-breaking highs on tap for this afternoon. We're talking low 90s out there. Our record's 91 degrees. We're already starting with these upper 70s, lower 80s. I mean, we're talking a 12-degree climb, and we're setting new records out there. 5 o'clock advisory, waiting for the next one. Should have it coming in at, let's see, in about 14 minutes or so. 50-mile-an-hour winds right now, and associated wind gusts are still upwards of about 65 miles an hour. Barometric pressure is lifting and the forward speed is increasing, which could help to limit some of the flooding effects here as you're looking at some of the rainfall totals. Mark did a great job explaining the inbound winds and the outbound winds as it came on shore, but we're seeing some of that same stuff here as the rotation. Remember, this is coming through, so this is going to be pulling moisture onshore from anywhere from the Virginia to the Carolina coastline, while this will be pushing offshore up through Norfolk and continuing as it moves into the Atlantic beyond that point. Our local radar, bone dry out there, and the expiration of the tropical storm warnings. Some of these were going to linger through like 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, but as conditions improved, they expired, and our viewing circle is now clear. Here's where the worst of it starts, still middle Georgia lifting. The bulk load of the rainfall, though, is now into the Carolinas, starting to leave just the light stuff anywhere from around the Blue Ridge area of northeast Georgia up through Ringgold, and then we'll move into the Carolinas, up into portions of Tennessee and into the North Carolina area over toward Waynesville. We had, and hopefully somebody captured the picture and they posted it and tagged us and they shared it, a gorgeous tropical sunrise out there. You get these great colors because the atmosphere right now, if you've been outside, you know it. It's saturated. South-southwest winds right now at 16, and even more so here on the beaches, but it's the wind that will turn things around, starting to pull some from the northwest into late tonight and then even in through tomorrow as we'll continue to see the wind swap. The winds will taper off, the drier air moves in, and so will those cooler temperatures for tomorrow and into the weekend. 91 degrees when the kids are hopping off the bus, one more degree, and we break a record at 91. We'll tie it. 80s continue for the Golden Isles moving inland. Now widespread 70s, even dropping a touch there for Homerville at 75 degrees, 70s and lower 80s continue in our Florida zones. There's the signature of Michael. This is radar depicted, not exactly as it shapes up, but I think it's doing a great job with the timing. Not only that, the direction and moving that thing offshore. Let's get into our forecast here for today. Skies will continue to clear out, and that takes us into the lunch hour. I think that this holds the winds a little too high here. 5 o'clock, we're stepping down to about 5 to 10 miles an hour, and then getting closer to the single digits beyond that, especially after sunset tonight. 90s widespread, beachside from the Sandy Toes all the way back in our inland areas. Maybe you're out in the fields here between, say, Clay, Putnam, and back into Baker County. You'll find your temperatures the same, mainly in the 90s. And I think that what we'll see here when we get our full update in, the leftover cloud cover takes a little bit to get rid of here for southeast Georgia, but your temperatures will respond pretty quickly, and you'll warm up into what will be those lower 90s. And I hate to say it, but yes, on all counts, it's going to be hot this afternoon to get it done, but the weekend with temperatures a little bit nicer, and after seeing some of the rainfall, which, by the way, the models did a great job, and that's what I was saying yesterday, and Mark and John and everything, this wasn't a flooding event, this wasn't a big rain event for us. It would be those splash and dash showers, but the tornadoes, all of that did come through. 92 degrees, breezy conditions here for today. Stronger winds this morning, tapering off throughout the afternoon. So when we're talking those rain chances, even the 20% we have right now, that's elevated as things are dry already. 10% picks up. We're all ready for a hot afternoon today, and the near seasonal temperatures move into our weekend. Could see some of the coolest mornings yet there for Saturday. I'm talking near the low to mid 50s in southeast Georgia. Open window weather, maybe during the morning. We'll see. Sunday, 87 degrees. After we'll start in the 60s, and then the chance for showers back into our work week forecast. V101.5 Throwback Hip Hop, R&B, and your Weather Authority forecast when you're on the go. We'll have more coming up in the 8 o'clock hour after the break.
Just got a new image into the newsroom of the two astronauts. Actually, it's one astronaut, one cosmonaut on board a Russian Soyuz rocket as they were headed to the International Space Station. A booster rocket failed, and they had to make an emergency landing. This is clearly before they took off.
Yeah.
Russia was transporting the two for a 6-month stay on the ISS. Just got this statement from NASA. It said the rocket made what's called a ballistic landing. Basically what happens is they realize there's what in space terms is an anomaly, a problem. So they had to return to Earth. They deploy a chute and they land. Search and rescue crews are on their way to get them right now. They have been in contact, and we are told that the astronaut and cosmonaut have told them that they are safe at this time and in good condition. Senior Russian cabinet official says the country is suspending manned space launches until they find out what went wrong this go-round.
Here's Football Friday's Game of the Week, sponsored by VyStar Credit Union. We never forget that it's your money.
And it is time to announce our Football Friday game of the week. This week it is at Clay High in Clay County. Blue Devils are hosting Ridgeview.
Thanks to everybody who voted. Our Football Friday coverage starts tomorrow right here on The Morning Show. 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer, and the 2 factors that influence cancer risk are genetics and lifestyle.
Coming up at 8:20, vital information about breast cancer screenings, prevention, and treatments. And of course, we are keeping an eye on damage from Michael. This video is from Columbus, Georgia.
Michael's the first major hurricane to track into the state since 1898. A live report from one of the hardest hit areas next. And looking live from Sky 4 on the west side, where Duke Energy crews are getting ready to leave to restore power to the hundreds of thousands of people now in the dark. If I'm not mistaken, that's over the Equestrian Center.
Look at all of those trucks. So crews will roll out to head to the Panhandle in Georgia to help, of course, restore power. We're hearing that they're going to leave in about 3 or 4 minutes, right at 8 o'clock. We'll have a live report from there.